Welcome to this lesson on integers and graphing. Please make sure you have these notes in front of you so that we can begin our lesson. This lesson has three I can statements. The first I can statement says I can explain the meaning of positive and negative numbers. The second I can statement says I can explain the meaning of 0 in a variety of situations. And the last I can statement says I can graph integers on a number line. So let's go ahead and talk about the vocabulary on the left-hand side of our notes. Our first vocabulary word is positive, and this means data greater than 0. So for example, I could have data as positive 5, I can have data that says 100, and I can have data as 1. These are three examples of positive numbers. The second vocabulary word is negative, and negative means data less than 0. So that includes anything to the left of 0 on a number line. That would be negative 5, negative 100, or negative 1. Those are three examples of negative numbers. Our last vocabulary word is called integers. An integer is a positive whole number. It could be a negative whole number, or it could be 0. So any three of those examples can be an integer. So for example, 5 is a positive whole number. We can call that an integer. Negative 5 is a negative whole number. We call that an integer. And 0 is also known as an integer. Let's take a look on the right-hand side and talk about some of the key concepts for today. So we're going to graph numbers on a number line. Whenever you graph numbers, we always start with 0, and 0 would always be on the middle. Anything to the right of 0, we're counting up. So that would be known as positive integers. Anything on the left of 0 is known as the negative integers. So one thing I want you to take note is, the farther you are away from 0 on the positive side, the larger your value is. If you look at the negative side, the farther away from 0 you are on the negative side, the smaller your value is. So the larger the negative number, the smaller it is. So if I'm all the way out here, I have a very small number compared to the number here. If I'm all the way on this side of the positive side, I have a very large number compared to the number that I have right here. So once again, on the positive side, the further right you go, the larger the value. On the negative side, the further left you go, the smaller the value. We can also have number lines that go up and down as well. So for example, I would still place my 0 in the center, but now my positive numbers would go up. So the positive region and a vertical number line would go up. The negative numbers and a vertical number line would go down. And we would still have the same concept. The higher the positive number is on the number line, the larger the value. Also for negative, the lower the negative number is on the number line, the smaller the value of the number. So we're going to use these key concepts to solve the following examples. On this slide, we're going to talk about some of the key vocabulary words that means positive numbers and some of the key vocabulary words that mean negative numbers. So for positive numbers, some of the key vocabulary words that you might want to be aware of are gain, deposit, credit, receive, proton, and above 0. All of these words are key words for positive numbers. On the right side, we have negative numbers. Here are some vocabulary words that mean negative numbers: loss, debit, charge, below 0, withdraw, owe, and electron. So look for these vocabulary words which indicate negative numbers. So example 1 says write an integer for each situation. So the situation says a 10-yard loss. So I know that the integer that I'm going to use is the number 10. but I want to decide whether or not this is positive or negative. And I'm looking at this keyword that says loss, and we know that loss is a negative word, so the integer that represents this situation is negative 10. Example 2 says write an integer for each situation. The situation is 4 inches of rain above normal. So the integer that I'm going to start off with is 4. And I'm going to look for a keyword that says negative or positive. So I'm looking at the word above. We know above is a positive word. So I'm going to say that my answer is positive 4. For example 3, it says write an integer for each situation. So the situation is a $48 deposit into a savings account. So the number that I'm going to be working with is $48, and I'm going to look for a keyword that means negative or positive, and I see deposit, which is a positive word because it means to put money into your account. So $48, 48 would be my integer that represents this problem. So pause the video, complete these got it problems, and then play it back for some feedback. For example 4, our I can statement changes. It says I can explain the meaning of 0 in a variety of situations. So we want to explain the meaning of 0 in this particular situation. So we know that a loss of 10 yards is negative 10. But in this situation, 0 represents no yards lost or no yards gained. For example 5, it says explain the meaning of 0 for the situation below. And we have 4 inches of rain above normal. And in our previous examples, we stated that that integer represents negative 4. And in this situation, 0 represents the normal amount of rain. For example 6, it also says explain the meaning of 0. The situation that they're giving us is a $48 deposit into a savings account. So we know that deposit is a key word for positives, and we answered this question before. So 48 was the integer that represents the situation. But in this situation, 0 represents neither a withdraw, which means to take money out, nor a deposit, which means to put money into the savings account. So pause the video, complete these guided problems, and play it back for some feedback. Example 8 says graph the set of numbers, negative 4, positive 2, and negative 1. So on my horizontal number line, I'm going to take note of 0, which 0 is in the center. And the first integer that I want to graph is negative 4. So negative 4 should be on the left hand side of 0 because it's in the negative region. So negative 4 is right here. Our second integer is positive 2. Since it's positive, it should go on the right hand side of 0. Here's positive 2 right here. And our last integer is negative 1. So if I'm at 0 here, it's on the left hand side of 0 right here. We can also graph these integers on a vertical number line. So 0 starts the center. The first integer of negative 4 would be on the bottom. So negative 4 is here, underneath 0. Our second integer of positive 2 would be above 0 in the positive region. And our last example of integers for this example is negative 1. It's below 0 because it's in the negative region. So let's go ahead and graph the set of integers for problem number 9. The first integer we want to graph on a vertical number line is 0. So here's 0 right here. Our second integer that we want to graph is positive 2, so that's going to go above 0. There it is. And our third integer is positive 3, and it goes above 0 as well, because that's the positive region. We can also graph these numbers on a horizontal number line, one that goes left to right. Let's label 0 in the center, and let's put a dot above that, because that's our first dot, or our first integer. Our second integer says to go to positive 2, which is on the right hand side of 0. This is positive 2 here. And then our last integer is positive 3. That's also going on the right hand side of 0 because it's in the positive region. And let's label that positive 3. So let's pause the video, Complete these got it problems and then play it back for some feedback. Now that you had a chance to complete this lesson, go ahead and self-rate yourself. If there's an area of this video that you did not understand, go back and watch it again, or come to class with some questions written down and we can discuss it.